I never thought I'd be in a situation where my actual health would be threatened because of neighborhood politics. But that's exactly what happened last summer. I'd moved into Sycamore Heights about 6 months earlier. A nice suburban development with manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, and unfortunately, a homeowners association that ruled with an iron fist. I'm not exaggerating when I say the HOA president, Karen Whitfield, had turned micromanaging our lives into an Olympic sport. From the moment I moved in, Karen had found something wrong with virtually everything I did. My garbage cans were visible from the street for 10 minutes too long on collection day. The trim on my house was apparently Navajo white instead of the approved creamy eggshell. My holiday decorations violated some obscure section of the community guidelines. You get the idea. I tried to be accommodating at first, but it became clear that nothing would ever be good enough for her. Karen was in her mid-50s with that signature blonde highlighted bob haircut that seemed mandatory for her type. She drove a white Lexus SUV with a personalized license plate that read Hob Boss, and walked around the neighborhood with a clipboard and measuring tape ready to document any infraction she'd been president for 8 years running, mostly because no one else wanted to deal with the headache of the position, and partly because those who opposed her mysteriously found themselves buried in violation notices. I'd managed to stay under her radar for a while by simply complying with her ridiculous demands. But everything changed. The day I installed a small package box by my front door. I travel frequently for work, and after having several deliveries stolen, I decided to invest in a secure delivery box. It was neat, matched my house color perfectly, and was barely noticeable, unless you were looking for it. 3 days after installation, I received an official violation notice taped to my door, unapproved exterior modification. Remove immediately or face daily fines of $100. I was annoyed, but not surprised. I decided to follow proper channels and submitted a retroactive approval request to the HOA Architectural Committee, complete with photos and specifications. The committee actually approved it, which should have been the end of the story, but Karen wasn't having it. At the next HOA meeting, she overrode the committee's decision, citing her emergency powers as president. Yes, she actually used the phrase emergency powers to describe her authority over a package box. I tried reasoning with her after the meeting, explaining that I needed it for my medication deliveries, since I have a chronic condition that requires specialty prescriptions that aren't available at regular pharmacies. Rules are rules, she said with a dismissive wave of her hand. If we let you have your little box soon, everyone will want one, and our community aesthetic will be ruined. Besides, you can just pick up your medications like a normal person. I explained that these weren't regular prescriptions I could get anywhere, and that the specialty pharmacy only delivered. She looked me straight in the eye and said with a condescending smile, "That sounds like a you problem, not an HOA problem." I decided to stand my ground on this one. My health was at stake, and the committee had already approved the box. I refused to remove it, and true to her word, Karen began issuing daily fines. After 2 weeks, I received a certified letter stating that I now owed $1,400 in fines, and if I didn't pay and remove the box within 48 hours, further action would be taken. I consulted with a lawyer who specialized in HOA disputes, and he confirmed that Karen was overstepping her authority. The Architectural Committee's approval should have been final, and her emergency powers were not actually in the bylaws. He sent a strongly worded letter to the HOA board, and I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong, so very wrong. The following day, I had to leave town for a 3-day business trip. I made sure all my bases were covered. Lawn freshly mowed, trash cans hidden away, nothing that could possibly trigger another violation notice. My monthly medication delivery was scheduled to arrive during my trip, but that's what the package box was for, so I wasn't concerned. When I returned home late Friday night, I immediately noticed something was wrong. My package box was gone, not just open, not damaged, completely removed from where it had been mounted. In its place was a violation notice laminated against the rain, stating that the HOA had exercised its right to remedy the violation. I was furious, but too tired to deal with it that night. I figured I'd sort it out in the morning and retrieve my package from the HOA office. But the next morning, there was no sign of my medication delivery at the HOA office, which was conveniently closed for the weekend. Anyway, I checked my delivery notifications and saw that the package had been delivered 2 days earlier. I frantically searched around my property, thinking maybe the delivery person had hidden it somewhere since the box was gone. Nothing. I went to Karen's house trying to keep my cool. When she answered the door in her tennis outfit, I politely asked about my package. "Oh, that," she said with a barely concealed smirk. "It was sitting out there for days, creating an eyesore, and probably attracting thieves to our neighborhood." I disposed of it. My blood ran cold. You disposed of my medication? Do you have any idea how serious that is? Those are controlled substances that I need to function. They cost over $1,000, and I can't just get them replaced. Karen's expression hardened. You should have thought of that before violating our community standards. Besides, I did you a favor. If you're getting mysterious, unmarked packages delivered, who knows what's really in them? For all I know, you're running some sort of drug operation? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't an unmarked package. It clearly had pharmacy labels all over it. You had no right to take my property, let alone dispose of my prescription medication. She crossed her arms and replied with a cold stare. You can take that up with the board. Now I have a tennis match to get to, so if you'll excuse me. She started to close the door. I put my hand out to stop the door from closing. Not aggressively, just firmly. Karen, this is serious. I need my medication. Where did you put it? Her eyes widened with fake fear. Are you threatening me? Remove your hand from my door immediately, or I'll call the police, she exclaimed in a voice loud enough for her neighbors to hear. I stepped back, realizing this was getting out of hand. I'm not threatening you. I just need my medication back. This isn't about the HOA anymore. It's about my health. I already told you I disposed of it, she replied with a satisfied look. Maybe next time you'll think twice before breaking the rules. I stood there in shock as she slammed the door in my face. I was now without my medication for at least 2 weeks until the next refill could be authorized. I called my specialty pharmacy, immediately explaining the situation, hoping for an emergency exception. The pharmacist Sarah was horrified when I explained what happened. Wait, someone deliberately took and disposed of your medication. That's not just inconsiderate, that's illegal. Tampering with prescription medications is a serious offense, especially for the type of medication you're on. I hadn't even considered the legal implications. I was just worried about my health. What should I do? I need this medication. And my insurance won't cover another refill for 2 weeks. Sarah replied with determination in her voice. First, we need to report this to the police. This is theft and possible tampering with controlled substances. I'll document everything from our end, including delivery confirmation. And don't worry about the refill. In cases like this, we can request an emergency override from your insurance. I filed a police report that afternoon. The officer seemed skeptical at first, until I showed him the violation notices, the lawyer's letter, and the delivery confirmation from the pharmacy. He took detailed notes and said they would investigate. The next day was Sunday, and I was still trying to figure out my next steps. When I heard a commotion outside, I looked out my window to see Karen being escorted to a police car in handcuffs, still wearing her Sunday church dress. Several neighbors were watching from their driveways, some not even trying to hide their satisfaction. I later learned that Sarah from the pharmacy had gone above and beyond. She'd provided the police with documentation, confirming the medications were controlled substances, which elevated the case significantly. When the police questioned Karen, she apparently admitted to taking the package, but claimed she'd thrown it in the dumpster because she thought it contained contraband. The dumpster had already been emptied, so the medications were gone for good. Karen was charged with theft, tampering with mail, and interfering with distribution of controlled substances. Since my medication required special handling and was classified as a controlled substance, what might have been a minor theft charge became much more serious. The police also found several other packages in her garage that belonged to other neighbors. Apparently, I wasn't her first victim, just the first one with medication that carried serious legal consequences. The district attorney decided to make an example of her case, given the nature of the medication she disposed of. Karen ended up pleading guilty to reduced charges, but still faced a $5,000 fine and 2 years of probation. She was also required to pay restitution for the cost of all medications and packages she had confiscated. The cherry on top was the emergency HOA board meeting called the following week, where Karen was unanimously voted out of her position as president. As she was leaving the community center after the vote, still in shock at her fall from power, she walked past me. The woman who had been so smug and untouchable just days before now couldn't even meet my eyes. I never thought they'd actually arrest me over a stupid package, she muttered, her voice shaking. It was just a box.